Contracts. So I have sent out the first wave of those for 7.
Good morning. All right, we won't do that. All right. Good morning. We'd like to welcome everyone to the February 13th, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting. It's nice to see everyone in person and virtually. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law of section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the beginning of the presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, virtual attendants will use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through the proper channels has been considered. Proper channels for comments are sending an email to the landmark@clevelandohio.gov email address with a comment or a letter, calling or leaving a message at 216-664-2532, or sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall located at 601 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 519. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by the Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting.
All right, to go over the meeting rules and procedures, the chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize any design review advisory committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberation and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
We'd like to call the February 13th, 2025 Landmarks Commission to order. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Dreyer?
Here.
Mr. Dulick?
Here.
And Director Fields? Councilmember Gray? Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Mr. Sambry?
Here.
Mr. Strickland? Mr. Trasick?
Here.
Dr. Williams?
Here.
And Ms. Trott?
Here.
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. I'd also like to note that we have Jessica Beam, Carl Brunges, and myself from the Landmarks office present. And we expect someone from the law department to be joining the meeting shortly.
Excellent. All right, then we will begin with our certificates of appropriateness. We'd like to call the first applicant forward. We'd ask you to announce yourself and tell us about your project. The first project is located at 2168 West 25th Street, the Carriage Company renovations.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Del Rey. I'm with MRN and 2168 West 25th Street. And this is our return visit to look at the windows and doors for the Carriage Company. Earlier in January, we presented the project as a whole, which is our redevelopment or proposed redevelopment of the Roush and Lang Carriage Company factory located between West 25th and 26th, between Chatham and Monroe. Just to remind the board members and staff, our intention is to redevelop the whole city block, shown here highlighted, which is a formal industrial factory, into 129 apartments, along with indoor covered parking, office, and retail. We have been working closely with the federal and state historic offices. We have been awarded federal and state tax credits, and the project, as designed by SA Group, who is joining me on the call, has been done so in a manner to meet the requirements of the historic offices. And again, just as a revisit, I want to include some pictures, both of the existing conditions now and of the historic nature of the buildings. Everything that we're doing has been in line with honoring and respecting the historic building facades, window details, and entryways in. The board gave us a certificate of appropriateness, I believe, extending to everything but the windows and doors last time. And so I wanted to come back and present our plan for window and door replacement as they will occur. One of the big features is, as I mentioned, is the fact that we're working with SHPO. And we recently, and I say recently, about 6 weeks ago, went back to them with our amendment to the approved plan. This is a presentation that Larry DeVita from SA Group had put together. And Larry, I'm hoping you could briefly touch on the next 4 to 8 slides, just talking about what the distinction is between the blue, the red, and the green highlights, and why they're relevant to the committee presentation today.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everyone. So there are 3 colors here. The blue is existing windows, existing today. The red is what was approved by SHPO, and the green is the proposed sort of changes to things. So if you look at the bottom elevation, the proposed, you'll see that quite a bit of the windows and doors proposed for this project are existing, and existing meaning that we're not touching them. The existing is mostly replacement windows from the early 2000s, and then what we're doing is adding and sort of fixing windows around the project. On this project, there are over 700 total openings, and basically the replacements for windows is about 75, so roughly 10% of the windows. The majority of the windows facing the sort of 4 sort of public sides, being Chatham, 25th, Monroe, and 26th, are existing to remain at this point.
So in summary, as we go through these slides here, if you see a blue highlight on the elevation, in this case, this is the West 25th Street elevation of the buildings as a front on the street. If it's blue, it's existing to remain. If it's red, it's a window that has been previously approved by the State Historic Preservation Office. And if it's green, it's basically our way of indicating an opening that had been approved, but we're asking for a change or for them to honor the condition as it is. And we'll show those changes as we go through the project here. So Dan, if you'd be so kind as to advance the slide. Did it freeze up? So here is the, let's see.
West 26th Street side.
Yep. And again, you can see where almost all the windows are existing to remain, and almost all the openings on the first floor. We have walked back a little bit from existing to remain to a new opening that we'll illustrate in later slides. And if you could advance the slide again. Now we're looking at the alleyway entrance. So as I hopefully you will recall, we are opening up the formerly covered alleyways to create a little public space in between the buildings. So this is the vacated West 26th Street view, I believe, looking east. I'm sorry, looking west. And then the next slide. This is the view from Monroe. And again, blue indicates existing to remain. Red are approved through SHPO back in 2023. Then we'll show that window in a little bit. If you could advance again. Here is our south elevation from the opened up Hancock alleyway. Now we're turning around and we're facing, I think this is on Chatham here, looking
South.
looking south. This is the north elevation.
Yeah, there's
Sliding in here, this is the alleyway. Still looking south, the north elevation from the opened up Hancock. Okay, this next page I included, and Larry, I'm hoping you could speak a little bit about this. This is a page from our submittal to Building and Housing for permit. This is taken directly out of our submission package, and this speaks to the window types as they are envisioned for when we do need to replace the windows themselves.
And so basically what we're looking at is what we've sort of identified as five types of windows. Type 1 is new sashes in existing frames. So in this project, there are some of the windows that are incomplete. They had insulated metal panels in them for various like mechanical reasons, air conditioners, vents, those kinds of things. So basically what we would be doing is replacing just sort of, you know, maybe half the window, new sash to match the existing glass. Type 2 is new windows to match the existing replacement windows that are in the project. And that is by far the largest majority of these, where there's an elevation that has quite a few of the existing replacement windows. We are just matching those. Type 3 is new windows to match historic windows. And on a few locations where there is a historic window that we were replacing. So like I said, there's over 700 openings here, and I can't remember how many actual windows there are, because there's some of those openings are multiple windows. If it's an existing historic window, we're replacing it to look like that. If we're making a new opening where there was an opening, we're putting a window in that looks like the historic windows. Fourth type is new storefronts, and type 5 is actual new windows. And the intention there is that the new windows are not to look historic. Now, having said that, not meaning to scare anybody, most of the new windows are sort of hidden from the street. They're on elevations that are facing either the parking lot or facing into the alley and are up high and hidden from most of the view. And the intent, as we've worked this through with SHPO and National Park Service, is that they don't want those windows to look like, you know, something that was historic, since, you know, the openings weren't historic openings. So those are the five types, and that's what this is showing. I mean, the building had all kinds of different types of windows, and so we've been working to sort of document what's there and trying to come up with the best details that we possibly can to make things sort of match the historic where we need to. But otherwise, the vast majority are
Interesting.
windows to match the existing replacement windows.
Right.
So that you have a uniform appearance on the exterior of the building.
Thank you, Larry. Again, this is the second page of that package. Both looking at storefront doors as they will engage on the street level. Just to remind everyone, we're not necessarily we're not presenting for the retail today as a part of this initial build. So the only door openings that we will be engaging with are either for our residential lobbies or for stairwell entrance and exits, as well as for the leasing office. So what you see at the bottom of this page are the specifications for any doors or doorway entrances that have to be either replaced or maintained. And then as we go into the next few slides, I'll be speaking to three chief types of windows, as well as specific door openings, because I think these, as Larry mentioned, there's 5 types of windows. Well, one of them is a sash replacement. So I want to really focus on where we are actually replacing full windows. So window type 2 is a Traco window to match the existing windows that were replaced. These are the ones from the early 2000s, right, Larry?
Correct.
So where there is a window on the upper floors that was replaced in the early 2000s, we would be replacing it with that same Traco window to match. This picture at the bottom of the slide is the existing condition. The next slide has the shop drawings. Oh, this is the interior of that same window there. So you can see how they exist both inside and outside. And then as we go through the slides, these are the shop drawings for those windows. So thanks, Carl. So the window type 3, now this is a new window. This is a Wosian window, and this is being proposed for the openings where we have actual historic windows that were not replaced by the owner in the early 2000s. These are a window to match as stipulated by SHPO. And again, these are the shop drawings for that window replacement. Finally, window type 5 is the Conair window. These are the windows that we are adding, or where we have to add openings that were not traditionally historic openings. These are the ones that Larry mentioned. We were directed not to try to make it look like time was. These are new openings, and so this is a newer window. And in a couple of seconds, I'm going to show everyone where these windows will occur at. And Carl, if you can slide through, these are the shop drawings for that window as well. All right, so the final few slides of the presentation are going to get into both some boring images and then some more lively images. The next couple slides simply are our demo package, calling out locations where windows will be removed and replaced. This is very similar to the earlier slides that we looked at. And Carl, if you could slide through these here. if you were blowing this up, you'd be able to see, there are indications or lettering in each opening indicating where the windows are being replaced. But I thought I would then kind of create this slide just to simply better illustrate where these windows are going. So the superimposed windows that you see tie back to that slide where we talked about the different window types, and then the arrows show where in a blocked up window, for instance, they're being replaced. So in this example, we are looking at the facade of building 15. This is, I believe, facing the parking lot or the alleyway.
It's facing the alley, yes.
Yeah, you're right, Larry, thank you. And then showing where a window type 2, which is that Traco replacement, would be added. As I wanted to include some detail, this is the facade as it currently exists. This is an example of the bricked-in windows in that alley to the left or the right of the opening there. Stepping back a little bit, now we are facing, let's see here, this looks like
West 26th.
West 26, looking at the backs of buildings 15, 16, 17, and 18. There's two different things I want to call your attention to here. One is where we have to create a new opening in building 17. We are going to be putting in a new garage door, so it's a new opening, and we'll be using a door that matches the existing panels. And this is what we have presented to SHPO as well. And again, where we are putting in new windows, in this case, they'd match that Traco replacement. And this is the image of what's currently there now. So you can see where those openings previously existed. They weren't even, the garage doors were not historic matched. And you can see also the bricked up windows that we'll be putting the Tracos in. You can also see that air conditioning unit up above. And here's another example. If you look at both the first floor, you'll see the bricked in windows that get replaced with a Traco replacement. And then on the second floor, there's an example of a boarded up window. There must have been a piece of mechanical equipment there that would also be replaced with a Traco replacement. This is looking at the west elevation of 11 and 13 and 14. So we're still on West 26th Street. Again, showing how when we replace a garage door, we're using that paneled look, as well as when we're replacing the windows. This is calling out the Traco windows. Now, I believe we are looking at the, where am I at here? This looks like an alley elevation as well. So this is looking east from the alleyway, the opened up alleyway. Again, there's a lot of bricked up windows that will be opening up in this instance. And the next slide should show how it looks today. With this elevation is important because if you can kind of careen your neck a little bit, you'll see along the second floor of that building, there's some mechanical equipment covering openings that we will be creating new openings. So this is where that type 5 window comes in. This is where that Conair window comes in. So if you go to the next slide, it should show you, perfect, where window type 5. These are new openings where those windows, where those arrows are pointing out, that we'll be putting in a different type of window, again, as directed by the State Historic Preservation Office. However, in the middle, you can see where an existing opening was before, we'll be replacing it with the type 2 Traco. Finally, last but not least, this is the elevation looking north. We're looking up 25th Street here from the corner of 25th and Monroe, and you can see all those blocked in, bricked in windows on building, we call it building 6 there. If you go to the next slide, these are where I believe we'll be putting in that type 3 window. And again, these are these are windows designed, this is that Wojan window, designed to look like the historic windows you know, they never replaced them with the Traco. There was no historic template for it or traditional template for it. So in this case, a window that looks like the original design would be placed there. So, and with that, I hope I provided a comprehensive overview of our plan for openings.
Oh. Thank you for the presentation. We will then move on to landmark staff recommendations.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Staff recommends approval. It's a very thoughtful and thorough presentation. It fills in a lot of the questions that we had on the details. So yeah, we recommend approval with the understanding that if there are changes as you go through the SHPO final approval, you'll keep us in the loop. And if they're significant, might have to come back to this body, but hopefully that won't be the case.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that summary. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
What type of a business will be in this building? I don't recall.
I'm sorry,
What
you
type
asking-
What type of business will be in this building? I don't recall from last time you were here.
Oh, sure. Well, the upper floors are multifamily, so there's 129 apartments. There's 8,000 square foot of office. We are interested in leasing out the office space on the second floor of building 6. There'll be some retail on the first floor, but most of the first floor will be parking, resident amenities, the lobbies, and the leasing office.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And overall, I think this was a very comprehensive presentation. Even with the revisions, I think what's being proposed is very thoughtful, and I am in support of the proposal.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments? Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question on the last couple of slides that you showed with the excuse me, the new windows going in the boarded up openings. I'm assuming the intent is to gang those series of windows together. And I just wanted to understand if that truly is the case, you know, there's going to be 2 or 3 sets that are ganged similar to the ones that are on the outside corners. Or is there some other way, some other arrangement that you're anticipating there?
You are correct. They would be ganged windows that you can see on the slide that's on the screen, sort of on the left and on the right. We're taking out some of the replacement windows, and they're modular. So there's 2 windows in one size opening, and there's 3 in the next size opening, which matches pretty much what was there historically from the historic photos that we have.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. And then just, I think one just final question. The color of the windows, is it the intent to match the green of the existing, or what's the plan for the coloration, I guess, throughout?
Coloration throughout is, you're correct, the hunter green color that's there, which is actually very close to what we found on historic window frames within the building. So it seems like they've been green for over 100 years. So we're continuing that and matching that with all the openings.
Great, thank you. And thank you again for the thoroughness of this presentation. If I had any questions before, I certainly don't have any additional ones now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Other questions and comments? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recall at the last presentation, the body had some questions about the doors. Is there any more information you could share with us about doorways?
Sure. I think about midway through the presentation, we showed the architectural diagrams for the doorways. Again, most of the doors, as they engage the first floor are either garage doors, in which will be matching existing. Or for the leasing office, I think we're showing a couple of glass storefront doors. Carl, if you want to scroll back, probably about 20 pages back, you'll get some detail on those.
It's page 16 in the presentation.
There we go.
So the intent there is, I mean, everything here is aluminum storefront. Doors that were sort of historically panelized, we're proposing to have sort of a 2-panel system within those doors, and then new storefront doors would be sort of standard modern storefront doors, so that it differentiates from the historic. So you can, immediately see this is new, that's sort of old, and so that's the intent there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions and comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion? Disclosure?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented in this presentation.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Samberry. We have a motion second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Mussin, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Dulick. Yes. Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Samberry,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trout.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, congratulations. We look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our second applicant located at 4810 Lorraine Avenue, demolition. Morning.
Morning, Madam Chair.
Great, just have to press the green button there. So
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board or commission. Kurt Weaver, architect, Cleveland, Ohio. Thank you for the opportunity to present our project. Regretfully, we lost a structure on Lorraine Avenue on December 8th to a catastrophic fire. Our project we are here to request the demolition only. This is our map that shows our location at the northwest corner of 48th and Lorraine. If you're familiar with the area, it's a very busy intersection with the urban school across the street. The structure was nominally 80 by 133 single-story masonry bearing wall structure, about a little over 10,000 square feet. It had a steel-supported mezzanine of about 3,900 square feet and a steel frame metal roof. And the structure was completely destroyed in that fire on December 8th. This is a photograph from the internet that showed the conditions prior to the fire. The county lists the building as a one-story building built in 1963 out of fire-resistant framing concrete block, 720 square feet of office, construction class C, usable area 10,480 square feet. It was remodeled in 1971, gable-type roof, that 3,900 square foot mezzanine, forced air heating, slab on grade, condition average, and composition roofing. This is the condition of the structure as it exists today, resultant of the fire in December. That's the south elevation facing Lorraine. Apparently there was a smaller historic structure encapsulated by the larger masonry structure, I presume in 63. We did not look at the fire Sanborn maps yet to see what that footprint was. Some staff did venture into the structure, and there might be some photographs that we can share of that. I myself did not go in. This should be the east elevation, which is the long dimension facing West 48th Street, set back on the property with the car sales lot in front of it. Should be the north elevation. There were 2 garage doors there. You'll see the detail of those as we continue forward. And this should be the portion of the west elevation that you see that protrudes to the north of the adjacent 2-story masonry building. This should be the detail of the fire. So that's the west portion. And that there's a recessed entry and a stoop there that might give us an opportunity in the rework of the project. Detail of the front portion, the boarded up plywood back past where the sales arrow points is where the office entry was. This should be the picture of the garage door on the north elevation to the west and to the east. Good demonstration of plastic state of steel under fire conditions. This is the opposite across the street on 48th Street, 2-story existing historic structure with the turret on the corner that faces Lorraine. Metro Health across the street, catty corner to the southeast. And then opposite across the street is an opening, is a field that's part of, and then that's the whole urban school. This is our parcel. It's actually 2 parcels. There's a small sliver of a parcel that's along that northern boundary. 48th Street to the right, and Lorraine to the bottom of the page. This was our selective demolition plan. To clear the site, we're going to retain the slab on grade, at least for the moment, and work from there. So we're here today. We submitted for permit at the beginning of January, which led us to this meeting. And we're going to ask that we be allowed to go ahead with the demolition so that we can clear the site. The city demolition people had already called us, receiving several complaints from the neighborhood about the site. So if possible, that would, advance our project that way. We met with the advisory committee last Thursday. We had walked through the site with them the prior Tuesday, which is where the site photographs of the interior. And we will meet again with staff and the advisory committee next Thursday to continue advancing our proposal for the replacement. Tommy Sullivan is our owner client. He is with us on the call. I think that's all I have for the moment.
Great. Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
We will then move on to local committee design review advisory committee recommendations.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This project did go before the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee last week on February 6th. That followed the Tuesday, February 4th site visit that was scheduled and took place. The local committee, I guess as Mr. Weaver said, we kind of received this as a demo and replacement package, but the committee felt that the replacement needed some additional work. So staff is going to work with Mr. Weaver and Mr. Sullivan on kind of coming up with a plan that will meet the city's code and be able to get through design review. But we felt the committee felt that the condition of this property was so poor and such a hazard that it needed needs to come down immediately. So they recommend the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition, and just considered it a total loss, the ones who went on the site visit. So
All right, thank you for that summary. And Commission staff, sorry, Landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As noted, we did have a site visit on February 4th. Myself and one of the Historical House City Committee members did walk through the structure with the owner, which was an experience. And so per our usual process, we have a bit of history of the building. As Mr. Reaver noted, there is a smaller historic building encapsulated within the existing structure. And it was originally from the Sanborn maps, 3 separate parcels with 2 frame buildings and a masonry building at the corner. The masonry building at the corner dated to around the 1880s and was demolished or disappeared around the 50s or 60s. So kind of interesting there. The current building is a 1909 building with a 1963 addition to fill the parcel to the west and expand and add height. And so the little picture is about where the footprint of that original building is. And then you can see just how much it expanded in the 60s. There's a little map showing the building. There's a nice, in the newspaper in 1909, it pops up as a building permit for an auto repair shop. And so it's had that use since it was constructed. Prior to the auto shop, it appeared there was like a cigar shop or a cigar factory there. But it's been an auto shop use for the most of the time since 1909. One thing to note is the 1912 Sanborn map does show a buried gas tank on the property. So something to keep in mind. It's just noted on the map. I did find an ad for the original auto repair, which was the West Side Auto Repair Company. That popped up there, so that was just kind of fun. And so it was an auto shop or garage use until 1928 when Becker Roofing Company moved in. And then it stayed with the roofing company until the 1960s when a new business, Sprockets and Gears, began using the space. And that aligns to when it was expanded for the much larger use. And at that time, the corner building is gone. And so they really have full use of that space. And in 1991, Buggies Unlimited moved in. And then it's been a continued use since then for auto sales and repair. And as noted, it was thoroughly damaged by a fire in December of 2024. Now, as noted, here are some pictures from the site visit. There are some interior and exterior pictures. And it's definitely an interesting building. We had a good number of the committee join us for that site visit. And most of it is the CMU walls. So these are some of the interior pictures where the steel has just warped and collapsed. There's a one of the major I-beams that was a support through the building is just on the ground. And yeah, so in general, staff, it aligns with the local committee in the support of the demolition. Even with the hidden interior historic building, all that is left or remains is pretty much just the walls. So regretfully, sad to see a building go down, but in this case, there's just walls and some steel left.
Thank you for that summary and the photography inside and out.
Yeah, that's fun.
It was fun. We'll now open up the floor to the commission for any questions and comments. I mean, overall, I would agree with the summary, the presentation and staff's, recommendations. It looks like it's a total loss, and for, public safety, I would also agree with, support the removal of the building. And then working with staff for the replacement building, in the near future. Any other questions or comments? Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Anderson?
I move to approve as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Dulick. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, then Mr. Mussin, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick. Yes. Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Trassick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trapp.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, thank you very much. We look forward to working with staff and looking forward to see you with our proposal for the replacement as soon as we can.
All right, excellent.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You
Thanks,
too. We'll now move on to our third applicant located at 5810 Franklin Boulevard, window replacement.
We have to untable this
Okay.
first.
So before you begin, sorry, I was not doing my job. First, I'd like to ask for a motion to untable this case from the January 23rd, 2025 meeting.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Sandberry. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. We have a motion. We have a second. Mr. Mussin, please call roll.
And Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick. Yes. Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Trassick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trapp.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Excellent. So now, I don't, since your presentation was so recent, I don't think you need to go through the entire presentation, maybe highlight any changes and any highlights from any conversations that you have.
Yeah, so
Had
no
it.
changes, so we would still be replacing those four windows, at 5810 Franklin Boulevard, or Franklin Boulevard, go back, yeah, Franklin Boulevard. The house is, very historic, the owner has owned it for, a few decades. Three of the windows, out of the four are in the tenants unit that's been renting from Mr. Farrell for over a decade. And we would just be replacing those four with our exclusive Unishield tailor fit, vinyl window. Some of the conversations that I've had with Dan over the recent weeks since the last meeting is I do agree with you guys that back in the 90s and early 2000s, vinyl windows were, a lot different where, they could look very tacky. And for a neighborhood like, this area, that's the last thing that you guys would want to bring in. Over the years, for the last about decade, they have a very custom tailored fit, window that we do sell here at Universal Windows. And this is a tan version of it. And obviously both that bottom sash and the top sash of our exclusive unit shield that is manufactured right here in the state of Ohio, we'll be able to go ahead and tilt in for that ease of the cleaning. But then in addition to that, there's a couple types of installs that come to a residential window replacement, and that comes along with the jam extension, which actually allows us to actually put the frame of the vinyl window at about 1.25 inches into the into that existing jam, where most of the time window replacement companies in the past would just do a window insert. And the problem with that is then that frame sticks out like a sore thumb, and that curb appeal look of an old historic house kind of disappears. So when someone's looking for, windows, one is the curb appeal, the look, but number two is their overall return on their investment, right? So if most of our customers can, save half the, amount and going with more of a fiber X or a wood window, which are great, beautiful windows, right? It kind of makes sense for them. So I think where we left off last month in January is we went through all this. We talked about those four windows, what Mr. Farrell needs to do, but you guys kind of wanted to see our window. So you guys mentioned you wanted me to bring this window in to see, the physical, actual window. So we're just proposing for these four, because I understand that if these windows were on the sides or the back, you guys would probably approve it. This is on the front facade. It would just be those four windows, the two that's in the tenant, and then the two on that front facade as well. One of them is in the tenant's apartment unit, and the one all the way to the left that's highlighted, that is in the hallway going up to the second floor of the multi-unit property there on Franklin Boulevard. Um, addition to that, the other conversation I wanted to bring up before ending this, on the back side of our windows, this is where really what you guys would see, right, is the only thing that is going to be sticking out of, like from the exterior point of view is this. All this is actually capped with, it's called custom performance G8 like aluminum foil, right? So that bulkiness that everyone thinks that a vinyl window is, when we're actually ordering them down to 1/8 of an inch, is kind of like a new technology when it comes to vinyl. Because vinyl used to just be recycled, so that recycled material will start to warp, fade, corrode, deteriorate. Now this is a TiO2 titanium dioxide, right? So it's the original form, like that original compound. So it's really just a smarter investment when seeking and investing in new replacement windows of what's in the industry today, right? So any questions on any of that of our window that you guys were mentioning last month?
Can you remind me of the color that's being proposed on this project?
Yeah, so this is just my demo window that I have, right? So it would be the exact like for like, on that is a glacier white to actually match up. So it'd be a glacier white vinyl, which would match up with all the other windows that are in the property, like on the house. So we would not be changing anything.
And matching the existing, there are no buttons.
Correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, please proceed if you were, do you
So I
have
think
anything else?
Yeah, so I think where we left it off last month is you wanted me to bring it in, make sure that, it's the window that we're saying that it is, right? You guys wanted to see that physical, model. So then moving forward, you guys fully understand exactly what we would be putting in, where, yes, I understand where you're coming from with the vinyl windows, but there are a few different types when it comes to that technology.
Right.
Where we can actually do a tear out where it slims down that frame.
Okay,
On the outside.
excellent. All right, thank you for the presentation.
Yep.
We'll then move on to Landmark staff recommendations.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair. As Josh mentioned, he did come into the office earlier this week to bring in the window sample as requested by the commission at our last meeting. Kind of talk through its, attributes, and staff is appreciative of the fact that it's not the classic insert, but it actually fits into the jamb as opposed to just fitting into the opening. So I think my biggest note would be that I guess sort of an acknowledgement that if you approve this window, we would approve it for the entire house, or at least the entire front of the house. So that, since these are just half of the windows on the front, if the owner wants to change the other half of the windows at some point, we'd like them to be consistent and not have to, I guess, go through a whole process again. So I think even though only 4 windows are being proposed today, if you justify why you're making the approval, I think also including that you'd be approving these for the entire front of the house would be helpful.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that recommendation. We'll then open up the floor of the commission for questions and comments. Questions and comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the thorough presentation. 2 comments. One is, I want to say maybe last spring, was a while ago, sometime last year, staff arranged a site visit for us to go to a window manufacturer that makes windows that are less expensive than what's normally used as a replacement in these applications, but was acceptable as far as from a historic standpoint. And I was wondering if those windows are being utilized, if that's something that we should encourage people to use.
Yeah, through the chair, Carl, I think she's talking about the the American Gas Association building. Do you want to, I guess, follow up on kind of the discussion that came after that from the local design review committee and everything else?
I don't, I know there's a bit of a split decision on the use of that. But in that case, you were also looking at the replacement of over 100 windows. So cost was an issue for that. And they were darker. They did maintain, they were built differently. I think there was interior structural with metal and such like that. So we always hear the term high quality, and I'll put that in quotes for the people who might not. High quality vinyl. I don't know, we've never really established what high quality vinyl is, and no disrespect to the it's hard to kind of differentiate between one and the other, despite technology changing, and we can acknowledge that technology has changed, and vinyl windows are probably better than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. So for me, and I can't speak for my colleagues, it's a smaller project at this point, only the 4, although there have been measurements for the rest of the house, and we already allow for the vinyl on the sides and the rear. So is it appropriate to use this material in this case by case basis? So those are all the things. So we allowed it in that other one because of the mass amount of windows, because they were doing all 4 sides. And they are also a locally manufactured one, which was big, locally great. So that's all those things that we kind of have to balance here. And then going forward, as Mr. Musson said, do we approve it for the whole front as well? And then we have to kind of look at our window policy as well. Does this affect how we judge future projects as well? So there's a lot to consider here. Thank you.
Thank you. That ties in with my second comment is a while back, I sold a 4-family on Franklin to a gentleman who replaced the windows, and he used, like aluminum wood clad proper window that was acceptable for the historic district. And it was not cheap. It was a pretty expensive project. I mean, the results were beautiful. He was pretty happy with it. But I think my concern here is approving a vinyl window is going to set a precedent where it's probably something that we're going to have to continue doing. And it's somewhat unfair to the people who have been putting the extra investment into their properties. And, in some cases, I can understand having to accept the vinyl window. But on the property values in this historic district, in the Gordon Square area have gone up exponentially. And, I think it warrants being able to make that additional investment. So, I'm inclined to the standards that we've maintained, the high standards that we've maintained. So those are my comments.
I think regardless of technology that has come about on vinyl windows in the last couple of years, we're still held to the Secretary of the Interior standards. And the Secretary of the Interior standards do not allow vinyl windows at all. So I think we've made a compromise in accepting windows on sides that are not visible from the public right away. But if we're truly following the Secretary of the Interior standards, I don't think vinyl windows should be approved on the front of the building.
Madam, okay, since I'm not this is not my expertise, pertaining to the vinyl windows and the standards of where the vinyl windows should be on the house or the right of way. Um, moving forward with the different changes of how houses or the, basic materials are being adjusted and changed to look in to look in homes and on the street per se, to give that beautification. My question is, would this hurt the standard look of the community of the other homes on the street per se? If the vinyl windows are there versus, the other houses don't have vinyl? Are we changing the look of the entire, of the entire look of the street of other homes too as well? Or what? That's a question because this is not my expertise on windows, vinyl or wood. So I need some help since we have two experts that know about windows. So I have a question on, does it make a difference or not due to what we're looking to change the look of the houses on the street? So I need some help here. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Musson.
Yeah, I think, I guess there's the material and there's also the appearance, from the public right of way. You know what I mean? If there is a vinyl window that looked just like a historic window, I don't think there'd be much of a discussion about, the actual material of it. The vinyl windows versus the fiberglass, versus aluminum clad wood, there are slight differences in the appearance. The vinyl tend to be a little flatter, whereas like the aluminum clad wood tend to have a little more depth to them, which is more historically accurate. As far as impact on a whole district goes, it's really cumulative. You know what I mean? Like you might have 10 houses on a block, one of them changes to white vinyl windows and then doesn't make too big of an impact, might be more noticeable, but then you get the second one, the third one. At some point, I think the concern is that vinyl becomes the norm and we don't have any historic or historically appropriate replacements left, and it's just all vinyl. It's I guess a large issue in preservation. Kind of windows, I think we talk about more than most other things. And there's a lot of different schools of thought. I know some people say like, let's just let it go. But when you look at each building on its own and then the districts as a whole, they're contributing architectural feature. So it's, where are we in that tipping point? And, with a house like this that's got aluminum siding on it, simple 1/1 windows, does it matter as much as, like the house next door that it's wood sided, there may be decorative sash. So I don't have a clear answer. It's sort of one of those ones you can think and talk yourself in circles. So I don't know, Madam Chair, you have anything else to add?
No, I think you said it correctly. I think there's no one size fits all, but it does starts to whittle away at the integrity of the materials within that area. And as much as I do think this is a quality window, and I do appreciate it, we're trying to stay true to our standards, so that we're not opening up ourselves collectively in these districts to continuously whittle more of the requirements away, because we have made concessions on the sides and the rears for windows and materiality, because we do understand the investment that this does take. But there's no one answer that fits every situation, because it is a case by case.
Where there's some houses where, it wouldn't be good for us to replace it. Yeah, right. Might make a difference, right? But the increase. I just want to bring up that. I don't know so much technology. I would think so. right, the big problem, I mean, right, is, more of that vinyl sticks out, so it's so. That part frame, but there's more black, so then from a critical standpoint. I could go or into like a fiberglass. Yeah, I mean, to make your point is, yeah, people have invested a lot of homes in this historic area. Actually have, gone up. It's a nice, item. I think some projects, could get approved and some others we kind of, it's just.
Other questions and comments from the commission?
What is the standard window type that should go on this house pertaining to the appearance of the other homes on the street? If it's not this, what is the standard one?
Yeah, for a house like this, I mean, per our window policy that the commission adopted, we'd recommend an aluminum clad wood window or fiberglass or composite for the front of the house. Again, just sort of that added depth and longevity is important. So that would typically be the recommendation.
And a question to the young man. Are you able to, the owners, are they able to afford the other type instead of this type? Is this something less that they want other than the standard that they should have?
It's gone more than I, in the situation just because of how we've been invested. I'm a gentleman, and without a warranty, investment for him. When they don't have to worry about any of the locks, latches. If, tenant gets mad or breaks it, it's more of a, peace of mind. The owner, that he's doing that. Yeah, but replace that window again where, and actually replace that glass. So in mind, yes, like, and windows that are out there, but we recommend and I understand that, but case by case, where for a property owner, it kind of makes sense or smarter investment that way.
Be aware that the recommended standard is what is needed other than the vinyl?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
You gotta press the button, turn on, sorry.
Yes, he is aware, and he did get multiple proposals when I went out to this, particular property. It kind of made sense to him, and because in the future, in the next couple years, even he is going to be doing that. The remainder of that entire property. So that's kind of why we're proposing, in the future, if we do these 4 windows, or if you guys do approve it hypothetically, would you approve, the remainder of the house? Case by case, though.
All right, other questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to deny the application as presented.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dulick? Yes. Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Mr. Sambry?
Yes.
Mr. Trassick?
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
And Ms. Trott?
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
So unfortunately, you are not approved to move forward with this. And like we said, we appreciate and we do appreciate the quality of your product. But I think because of our standards, we
Oh, no, I get it.
have
I mean,
to withhold them. But I think the conversation still needs to be continued of how, what our requirements are related to new technologies. We look forward to seeing you back in the future.
No problem. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness for today. We'll then move on to schematic plan reviews. We have one applicant in front of us. It's located at 3813 Euclid Avenue, Children's Museum of Cleveland. This was previously presented on December 12th. We'd like to welcome the applicant. Please announce yourself and tell us about your project.
Hi, everyone. I'm virtual today. Hopefully you can all hear me. My name is Caitlin Bonneke. I'm a project designer at AOGK over in Lakewood. And we're here just to provide an update of the design progress for the Children's Museum Service and Connector Edition. So if you want to proceed to the next slide. I might also be joined by Maria Campanelli, the Executive Director of the Children's Museum, who might jump in here or there to provide some additional insight or context. So just to refresh everyone's memory, I'm sure you're familiar with the building. It's located on the east side of the city in Midtown, and it is surrounded by several neighborhoods that it serves. If you go to the next slide. For context, the Children's Museum has frontage along both Chester and Euclid, with the Euclid corridor being the main entrance and kind of the money shot of the building. Want to highlight a couple areas where we're targeting our work. So in the top left corner, there is the Sport Connector squash court wing that is currently mothballed due to inaccessibility. If you remember last time, I highlighted some difficult level changes and stairs that make that area hard to get to. And we have some additional drawings to show that in photos. The annex, which is where Adventure City, which is the big playground, is kind of like attached to that, where that outline pink arrow is pointing. And then the historic mansion is where the solid arrow is, which we are not proposing any work there. I want to reiterate that all guests will be coming in the front door, regardless of what work we do towards the rear. That will not be an entrance to service the museum. So our two areas of interest are where that pink outline arrow is, which we're calling the rear connector. And then the service addition would be going where the existing dumpster enclosure is, which is to the, I guess, left side of the annex building. I don't know if you could zoom in or see anything, but you could kind of see the dumpster and board-on-board fence there. So overarching goals for these two additions are to mitigate the level changes to allow that full access to the squash court wing, which I mentioned is completely mothballed due to that inaccessibility, and also improve circulation by adding a large capacity elevator that the museum currently does not have, that also limits that visual impact on the exterior of the building for the elevator. So if you go to the next slide, we can go through some existing conditions photos. This is the view from the Euclid Avenue side. So the upper left photo and the bottom right photo kind of show the existing sight lines from Euclid Avenue, and then as you approach the front door. You can see in the upper right photo and then the other two remaining photos at the bottom, this is kind of the area in which we're looking to add that elevator, the existing dumpster and dumpster enclosure in that storage shed that's kind of like a lean-to structure would be removed. We basically chose this corner of the building because it is already service and utility oriented, and even the large windows that are present along the facade of the annex are frosted to limit visibility in or out. So if you proceed to the next slide, we can look at what's going on at the Chester side. So this is what you would see as you drive by. That we decided not to proceed with the elevator at this rear portion because of all the architectural character that is present along this facade. So we wanted to limit our kind of imposition on the existing catwalk, the arched windows into Adventure City that you can see in the lower left corner, as well as the arched windows and dormers on the carriage house. So this facade offers a chance to kind of give people that are driving by a hint that something's going on in this building, that it is exciting, but also not scream, this is the front door, right? So we're trying to limit that. And I do want to point out that while there's no easy accessible route on this end of the building, which you can see in the upper right photo with all the different stairs and levels that are going on there, there is an existing stair tower as shown in the bottom right photo that connects the other end of the building. So if you go to the next slide, on the right, we're showing kind of generally where we're proposing some demolition. So we'll be removing a portion of the terrace and stairs, which was highlighted in that last photo with all the different levels and stairs and doors, as well as the storage shed and dumpster enclosure out in that utility service area. On the left, you can see our proposed scope of work. So we're adding in that connecting rear connector with new stairs and landings. And then in the service area, the new elevator and additional spaces, basically returning their storage that's conditioned and not just the shed. A restroom that would service the front lawn of the property. And obviously the elevator. If you go to the next slide, we had shared some inspiration images previously. So we wanted to be both respectful to the existing building, but also being a little bit more fun and eye-catching because it is a children's museum. But we didn't want the elevator predominantly to overpower the existing structure, right? So we wanted to play also with the existing arches, and in the lower right image, you can see what we're calling tan and teal accent colors of the historic mansion that we will be proposing for use in our connecting additions. And we also wanted to use a lot of glass so that you could see through and see the existing arches as they exist currently on the rear facade towards Chester. All right, so if you go to the next slide, we can walk through some floor plans. I'll go over these briefly because they haven't really changed since we've last come before you guys. So one note that came from Landmarks was either stepping the building back or forward along the rear side towards Chester to keep it either in front of the existing line of the terrace or behind it. So we compromised a little bit and provided a planter that would buffer kind of the building and the parking lot, but still allow us to maintain those parking spaces, which are very important to the museum. So we have that building kind of the rear connector piece stepping back as it goes up. You can see the kind of pass through underneath what would be the existing terrace back to the elevator. We had a meeting with the elevator manufacturer, and he highly recommended going with a front and rear opening elevator as opposed to a front and side for maintenance issues and cost. So that's what we proceeded with. So as we move up, you'll see an additional vestibule on what would be the south side. If you look at the the floor plan on the left with the Adventure City lobby. So we have an opening that way to kind of connect to Adventure City. And then as we move up, it'll be on the north, kind of tucked away. So I just want to also remind everybody that where this plan says existing locker rooms, the plan is to turn that squash court wing, the entire wing, into party and school group rooms. So guests would be using this large elevator and the stair to basically move to and from Adventure City very directly and easily. If you go up, next slide, please. This is showing the what would be on level with the existing squash court. So we're 4 feet above that parking lot at this point. And this is where we would be flush with the all backwards. The squash court, the overlook, the storage, the elevator, all of that would be on one landing. We'd have a small kind of drop down to Adventure City to accommodate that front and rear opening so that all levels of this corner are accessible. If you go to the next slide, this is showing the one on the right is showing the roof situation going on. So the connector roof sits below the catwalk, so we're not infringing on that in any way. And then the service addition, we show the kind of elevator lobby that would be tucked against that building. So you wouldn't be seeing that as it goes up. So that roof is held down below, basically on plane with the existing lean-to shed roof so that it's not intersecting with any of the building moving upwards. If you go to the next slide, please. This is the existing section. So again, I just wanted to reiterate the complexity with the level changes. So there's an existing reading nook that's set above the annex ground floor, which is Adventure City. And then the squash court wing is set 2 stairs or so above that reading nook. So we have essentially 4 or 5 level changes here that make accessing that wing very difficult, especially for young children and people with, parents with strollers. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is the new section that we're proposing. So we'd have the lower level kind of just straight off the parking lot. This door that would be kind of opening out into the parking lot would be emergency egress only, so not an entrance. Again, everyone would be coming to the front door. And then we essentially just leveled things out so that you can access Adventure City from the elevator, passing through kind of that, what was the existing reading nook. We're now making it a little bit smaller and then leveling it out on the squash court. So we have 3 levels as opposed to 4 or 5. If you go to the next slide, wanted to show the design has changed a bit since we last saw you. So we're still looking at creating this elevator tower along the annex facade in that service area. We've stepped up the elevator tower so that it peaks above the existing parapet, but then we've kind of created what everyone called a hyphen condition, where it attaches to the annex, so it steps back down and separates that elevator tower a little bit from the existing facade. We went big, I guess, with our teal elevator tower. We feel as though this will not infringe on the existing facade or character of the building just because it is so set so far back from Euclid Avenue. And we thought that this might be a nice wayfinding element to guide parents and their children to the restroom that would be placed back here. But we are keeping the rest of the addition painted the same as the existing building, that maroon color. And then you can see the kind of vestibule that would be tucked behind the elevator that would accommodate the 2nd and 3rd floor. So if you go to the next page, this is kind of a rendering of what that might look like. So again, the teal tower, and then kind of connecting back with the maroon brick attaching to the existing building. We're also proposing the dumpster enclosure be smaller. Right now, it's very large for what they need. So that's why you can see that it's a little bit smaller. If you go to the next slide, this is the rear connector. So again, it would be sitting below that catwalk that you could see in the upper left photo. So we're, again, with this piece, we're balancing kind of what we're going to intersect with. We have those arched openings at Adventure City that we're trying to obviously not block any of the glass. And there's a decorative kind of arch around those windows that are slightly higher or lower than the trim on the carriage house. So just a little bit of a complicated junction, but essentially we're sitting below the catwalk, so nothing will touch. And then those arched openings that you see on the carriage house would be used as doorways into the squash court wing, so that the guests would actually be passing through the carriage house and moving as they move into Adventure City. So if you go to the next slide, which I believe is our last slide, this is kind of what the design has morphed into, a more delicate glass box. So really it's about how little, I guess, we could have in order to still see through the glass to the existing facade. So you'll still be able to read the arched openings through that. And basically this is housing a sculptural stair that would take students and guests to and from the squash court wing, which is their party or school group room, to the playground and back. And you can see that planter along the edge there that would be in line with the existing terrace. So essentially we're looking for feedback on this updated, design. And if you have any additional questions, we'd be happy to answer. So thank you.
All right, thank you for the presentation. We'll then open up the floor to the Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This went before the Greater Downtown Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on February 5th for schematic review. There was a good amount of discussion about colors and the Secretary of the Interior standards in general and impact on historic properties, sort of the contradicting ideas of blending in with the old or setting itself apart as new. Some I think felt that the new tower element should be painted out to match the brick. Others thought that that would sort of create confusing visual clutter, and that it was better that it be its own unique and independent element that stands out as a new item. In generally, they're supportive of it. I think they like the direction of both the Chester entrance element and the elevator tower. So it's really, I think final colors are going to be of interest to them, but in general, they were supportive.
All right, excellent. And Landmark staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff also finds it a very interesting proposal. There's elements that differentiate for both the service edition and the connector edition. And we generally agree with local. It's a bit of an interesting thought exercise. And we, as staff, had a good conversation about it. The landmark is the Steger Beckwith House, but also University Club. And so the question is, what elements of the building with the numerous number of additions are the historically significant ones, or is it the whole building as a whole? And so we look forward to hearing further discussion about it. Overall, we're happy to see how it's evolved over time and are kind of supportive of seeing how it goes. And then as a note, the logo and signage, if they move forward with that on the elevator tower, that will need to be treated as signage.
Excellent. Thank you for that summary. And we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Dulick?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the thorough and well thought out presentation. Really appreciate the development of the design. I think particularly the simplification of the elevator to the two-sided. I think that was a very good move. And I feel that the direction that the connector edition has gone in terms of being within our standards, clearly new, but also the additional transparency to really read the historic elements through it. This seems to me, personally seems very much in the spirit. Really appreciate not compromising that balcony on this elevation. I like how this has evolved. I think I'm very interested in what the fellow commission members think about the elevator tower. I feel like it being its own thing and feels appropriate. I know it's always a challenge when you have at least two, if not more languages to do something new. I like how this separated from the glass gives it more verticality. I think it has a similar gesture. It's clearly a freestanding tower that has more of a glazed connector piece. I think it might be more successful as you continue your explorations. The part that seems ambiguous to me is the new addition on this side with the arched openings. I feel like the kind of clarity and sensitivity of that which is on the north side of the building. I don't know what exactly the openings are that you would see through that, but I'm imagining if this may, as part of your exploration, I'd like to suggest something more glazed through which you see not only any historic elements, but also see this new tower coming through the ground, the way you see the stair, the way you see the arches. I think it could be as simple as a solid plane where the dumpster is and a glazed plane where that is, because I think the arches almost imply that this may be part of the original, but you don't really know. So I think for clarity's sake and elegance sake, I'd like to suggest explorations that look at that and also the visual consistency of this entire exercise. So those are my personal thoughts, but I'm very much in support of this proposal. And I again commend the sensitive development, but also the kind of, going big. I think it's fun. It is a children's museum, and I think that there's room in our world for that kind of boldness within the sensitivity. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dulick. Other questions or comments? Delozer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to echo Mr. Dulick's comments. I think that the transparency to sort of that very interesting stair component in the rear helps to provide sort of a glimpse. It's sort of like the jewel within the box, something that's really interesting. And I think being able to explore that similarly on the south side, I think would be interesting. One of the things that I'm trying to understand a little bit more is the connection of that new piece into the Adventure City zone. Looking at the current photo, there's a sort of a very impressive arched window that's in that area. If you go back to the back one more, in the photo up in the upper left corner. I think that, so it looks like as part of the plans, looks like that's being filled in and then two new openings being inserted to provide access. I'm wondering if there's any opportunity there to retain that as a feature, where, if there is still some sort of glazed moment that happens at the exterior of the new piece, that you're still retaining that as a feature in some capacity. I know that it's a little bit difficult because a significant portion of that is being sort of covered by the elevator, but maybe that could be an opportunity to from within Adventure City be able to see that elevator volume, seeing that as sort of that interesting element, just as the stair is the interesting element on the other side. But I think overall, I think this looks really nice. I think you've been very sensitive to the original historic building, and this is very, very much subservient to that. I don't mind the green elevator. I think that it does help to provide an opportunity to really have it stand out a little bit more as something different. And the fact that color is used throughout as a sort of a tracing element that you're seeing sort of pop up in different areas of the building, I think is pretty nice. Is the intent that volume is a painted material, or is that like a metal panel? And I apologize if you already mentioned that.
No, I did not mention it. It's just called out here. We're planning to keep the elevator tower as CMU and parging it or painting it the teal. We explored a metal panel, but ultimately tried to go this direction for cost concern.
Thank you. So in that case, I mean, because it is being proposed as a painted material, it could always be painted another color at some point in the future. So I'm, you know, I think those are my comments, and I think that this is a great progression since the last version. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Other questions, comments, Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I agree with a lot of what my fellow commissioners have said. I don't agree on the color of the elevator tower. Because it's already an unmitigated box, it's going to stand out from most of the rest of the design of the building. So I think creating more emphasis on it by putting a large swath of color there, especially considering that it's higher than the parapet wall. So it's going to be a very prominent feature. So I think if you already have the logo on that, that addition, that'll, you know, direct people to where it is. So I really think that that addition should not be the green, but it should be something more consistent with the balance of the building. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Stanberry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think from the outside, I kind of really like the way that this elevator shaft and addition is designed. I guess my question is, you have new windows just to the left of, or to the right of the elevator shaft. Is that a placeholder representation of the windows, or do you intend to do a 2/2 window?
I think.
It looks like the historic,
ahead, sorry.
or the current photo shows, you know, much more divided window. What is your intent there?
Yeah, our intent would be to try to replicate what's existing and just replace them in kind, essentially. So these are just placeholder.
And then on the other side where you have the curtain wall system, are the original windows going to remain in the original wall behind that, or are they going to be removed?
On this rear piece.
No, back on the other side.
Oh, the windows on the, I guess, north end or the left
So to the
side.
left.
Yeah, those would be removed because we need to punch an opening through there to allow for access into that elevator vestibule. So basically we'd be removing, you know, I guess it would be 1.5 windows on that side and then underneath to cut out a new opening. In this section, forget what slide 12 maybe shows generally what we're thinking on the interior side. If you go back one. Yeah.
That entire gang of windows on all floors will be removed.
All but the one on the far end, yes. But we will have the glass vestibule to let light into that space, yes.
And then I guess my other comment would be, I think it would be helpful to see an interior rendering of the micro reading nook now.
Okay.
To understand where the elevation changes have happened. I am pretty familiar with the space. I take my kids there a lot. So that space is dropping down 4 feet, correct?
It will be essentially split in half. So one half would be at level on grade with Adventure City, and the other would be in plane with the squash court.
Great. So you're losing one of those, I guess, iconic stairs, but you're retaining one.
Yes, we're retaining one of the stairs that goes through the arched openings on either side of the fireplace, if you're familiar. But we're adding, I think it'll be like 2 risers to accommodate that level change, and then removing the other to kind of level out the floor there.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to understand what's happening there a little bit better. But you are retaining, half those stairs that you have. So I'm okay with this. I think it would just be helpful to have a little more detail there.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'll echo much of what my colleagues have said. I mean, this is a tricky surgical addition, especially trying to make a building handicapped accessible or stroller accessible, right? That I think you've done a really good job of threading that needle of trying to uh, maintain as much of the fabric in here, but the reality of what needs to happen to make this accessible. Is so staying on the addition that we're looking at, I would agree with the comments about the arched windows. They do feel a little foreign here. And it would just be better to let it continue to be a glassy area for the public and a very, sort of understated, masonry box, let's say, for all of the areas on the west side, so, inclusive of that maintenance entrance. So it just lets it, sort of be background. I agree with Mr. Lozier's comments, and since this is a painted CMU area, I personally like the green just because it does provide a little bit of interest to this area and just really celebrates that this is new and the modern things that you're doing to this facility, but it could always be painted in the future. The yellow hyphen is the only area that I don't know if I love. From the rendering, it looks like the hyphen, you were painting the gold or the yellow. That to me, might want to be understated versus brought out with that brighter color. But overall, I do like what you're doing here. And as far as the addition off the north, I do like the simplicity of that addition and how it, once again, it's understated and lets you see the architecture beyond. So I'm in support of both proposals. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I would like to come and do a tour of the building. I've never been in there before. To compare what it looked like and what you want to do with it, just to understand the architectural design and what the experts here at the table see and I don't see. So I can come anytime, or should I plan a date?
Yeah, I mean, I think the museum's open every day except Thursday. So I've never had a tour with a landmarks commission. So I'm sure we could schedule that with the executive director. Be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Not seeing any additional questions or comments. Does the applicant feel like you've received enough feedback from the commission to continue the development of your design?
I think so from my end. I don't know if anyone else is on from our group. I see Maria and the architect, John. I don't know if either of you have anything.
I think the feedback was fantastic today. I really appreciate it.
All right, excellent. Well, then we look forward to seeing you come back with your final proposal.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes our our schematic plan reviews. We'll then move on to landmark nominations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the landmark nomination for the Cam's Corners Bank Building, former Cleveland Trust Company, West Park Branch. Yeah, in Cam's Corners on Lorraine Avenue. It is located at the northeast corner of Lorraine Avenue and Rocky River Drive in said Cam's Corners. Cleveland Trust Company had its origins as a planned safety deposit box company in 1893. And while this venture did not work out, in 1894, state laws were modified and under a push from Cleveland industrialist Marcus A. Hanna, among others, to make it easier to form trust companies, so long as they kept those activities separate from safety deposit and banking activities. It was with these rules in place that the Cleveland Trust Company was formed. Taking residence in the newly built Garfield Building, the bank officially opened in September 1895. The banking business took over a portion of the first floor later in 1898, while the trust business and the safety deposits vaults remained in the basement. After a merger with the Western Reserve Trust Company, the main banking room moved down the street to the corner of Euclid Avenue at Public Square in the Williamson Building. The Garfield Building remained as the women's banking branch. The acquisition of the Windermere Savings Bank was the first of many, as they were the first local bank to have branch locations. This is still early in branch banking in the history of the United States, and they look to expand to have a branch in every neighborhood. The new office opened at Euclid and East 9th Street on January 1st, 1908. Additional smaller banks were acquired, and by mid-1920, there were 23 total branches. Cam's Corners was named after Otto Cam, a Swiss immigrant who arrived in the area in about 1875. He was eventually made the local postmaster who was operating out of his store, which would lead to the naming of this intersection. The earliest date of that reference being Cam's Corners that I could find was about 1894. Rockport Village was still a small countryside community at the turn of the 20th century, and during the first decade or so, there were the beginnings of development with early subdivisions being created. All this changed after the city of Cleveland annexed the now named West Park in 1923. The West Park Savings and Banking Company was formed in 1915. The bank was located on the north side of Lorraine, just west of Rocky River Drive, approximately where the RTA shelter is located today. Cleveland Trust Company acquired the bank in late June 1920, establishing its 24th branch, although some sources will say it's the 25th, two here in Cleveland Heights at about the same time. The Cleveland Trust Company was continuing to grow, and by 1926, there were 52 branches. The prominent location in the growing community was ideal. 3 buildings were raised prior to the work being started. The building was designed by Alfred G. Hall, who was the in-house architect for the company for over a decade. He designed a number of renovation projects for the company and for new buildings in Bedford, Cleveland Heights, Painesville, and Lakewood. The building is significant architecturally as an example of a neoclassic commercial structure. This was an important style for banks at the time, which implied both stability and strength. The building opened on June 11th, 1927. At the end of the year of completion, there were now 57 branches. The building is constructed of limestone. Ionic columns flank the central entrance on Lorraine Avenue. Simple classic piers separate the bays, and a centralized classicized parapet rises above the entrance. A rear addition, likely for drive-through banking, was added in 1960. By 1977, there were 120 branches and $5 billion in assets. The name of the corporation was changed to Ameritrust in 1979, and the parapet was altered to remove the Cleveland Trust name. The building was restored in 1998 as a part of the city's storefront renovation program. As you can see, Ameritrust ceased to exist after 1991 through a series of acquisitions. And this is a photo of what it looked like post-restoration. The O.B. McClintock Company clock is not original to the building. The O.B. McClintock Company was the successor to the McClintock Loomis Company and produced bank clocks of this nature from 1917 to 1949. It was previously installed on the First National Bank of Gettysburg in about 1926. It was removed from that building after 1972. There is a twin to this clock in Hendersonville, North Carolina, which is installed in 1927. The building maintains its integrity minus the removal of the lettering and on the parapet, which is approaching that 50 years in change, and the addition of the clock. I guess I'll turn this over to Mr. Musson for.
Thank you, Carl. Just staff recommends nomination of this property for as a designated Cleveland landmark. We found that it meets several of our nomination criteria, including its character, interests, or value as part of a development of heritage or cultural characteristics of the city, state, or United States. The historic property embodies elements of architectural design, detail, materials, or craftsmanship which represent a significant architectural innovation. And the historic property's location or its singular physical characteristics represent the establishment or are familiar visual features in the neighborhood, community, or city. So this certainly tags all those bases, and you could probably make an argument for some others too. But yeah, staff supports the nomination.
I know, I'm so loud. Any questions or comments from the commission related to the nomination? I'm very familiar with this building. I was surprised that this wasn't landmarked already. Knowing the state that it's in, you know, it's in amazing condition and revered by the neighborhood. So I'm in support of the nomination.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I just have a question. I mean, is Cam's Corner itself a historic district? I don't know enough about.
It is not a historic district. I think question has been raised over the years whether there's a district there or not. I think you could make an argument that there's, a commercial historic district there, but a lot of it's been demolished and removed over time. So it's really, I guess by the time you look at what's still there, still contributing, still maintains its integrity, it's a pretty small area in reality, and honestly, most of that is through the work of the storefront renovation program. Some of those buildings were looking really rough into the 90s, early 2000s, and then they went through storefront, and so they look nice now. But there has been a lot of loss of fabric in the stretch of Lorraine over the years. So I would say not a lot of potential for a district here.
Gotcha. Understood.
Other questions, Mr. Dulick?
Yeah, I fully support this nomination. I'm surprised too, like you, Madam Chair, that it's not already a landmark. But I just gotta say, I'm completely charmed by the old photo that has the little drug and candy store there in the corner with the striped awnings and things like that. There's something about that I find is kind of a testament to the integrity of the building. Even the Geiger's sign, there's something just so American about it. And yet I feel like the quality, the architecture, the stateliness of it, not only shines through, but is all the more stately because of those more ephemeral things that speak to their time. That is really something about this image. Thank you for finding this to the landmark staff, because this just, I love the sign on the top. To say, in a better world, maybe we could bring some of those things back, because, or maybe a new version of it. But I just, not only very familiar with this building, but know how much this community loves it. And I think it's a really great thing for this body to, landmark buildings like this that really are the true anchors of their neighborhoods, even still, with all the changes. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Someone like to make a motion? Mr.
I will
Dulick?
make a motion to support the nomination of this building as a Cleveland landmark.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Samberry, thank you for the second. Any further discussion? No. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer?
Yes.
Mr. Dulick? Yes. Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Mr. Samberry? Yes. Mr. Trassick?
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
And Ms. Trapp?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. All right. And that concludes our landmark nominations, and we'll move on to meeting minute approvals. There was one meeting minutes that was circulated from October 24th, 2024. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or would like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 24th, 2024.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sandberg,
Yes.
Mr. Tresick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trent.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, excellent. And it moves on to administrative reports.
Not a lot from staff's end. Did want to note that Calvary Presbyterian, or currently New Life at Calvary Presbyterian, was officially listed in the National Register of Historic Places. So I think that's probably our newest National Register property. So that's all I have. Carl, Jessica, did you guys have any site visits?
We may have an upcoming site visit in the next week or so. So please keep an eye on your calendars.
Okay, excellent. All right, well then with that, we will adjourn. Just want to say thank you for everybody who came in person. It's so nice to be like a full table.
Voting
This
goes so
is-
fast.
I know. It's so easy to see people, and so, yeah, thank you for showing up. We appreciate it. And so with that, then we will adjourn today's meeting and see everyone in 2 weeks. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.